8 ordinary people you've never heard who changed the world. Most of us hope to be remembered by our family and friends. Our achievements are often of small note and soon forgotten. There are, of course, a few people whose names will live long after them. And then there are those anonymous pioneers whose achievements, whether good and bad, changed the course of history but whose names are, for the most part, unknown to us. Whether by design, by accident, or by malicious afterthought, there are some people whose contribution to the history of the world has gone largely unrecognized. Here are the 10 people you've never heard of who changed the world. Number 8. Philo Farnsworth, the man who invented the TV. In 1927, Philo Farnsworth managed to transmit an image of a straight line through the air. By 1929, he had improved his design and managed to transmit a picture of his wife, much more exciting, even if the picture was a little blurry. Though he called it an image dissector, Philo had, in fact, just invented the television. Philo turned down offers to buy out his patents and started his own business but couldn't compete with the large companies that were getting in on the act, and his business folded. Philo remained an inventor until the end of his life in 1971 but never again invented anything as wonderful as TV. Number 7. Louis Latimer. Louis Latimer, the son of runaway slaves, was the draftsman who helped Alexander Graham Bell file his patent for the telephone. That's kind of impressive, but that's not all. Latimer also patented a carbon filament for the incandescent light bulb in 1881. Though Thomas Edison is generally credited as the inventor of the light bulb, he had, until that time, only been able to make the bulbs light up for a few minutes at a time. Latimer patented his method for making carbon filaments, which allowed light bulbs to burn for hours before burning out. Much more useful. Not only that, but Latimer was a pioneer of the electric lighting industry and one of the charter members of the Edison Pioneers, who worked closely with Edison in the further development of electric light. Of the original 100 pioneers, Louis Latimer was the only black man. He went on to invent a number of other useful gadgets, including a flushing train toilet and a device which cooled and disinfected patients' rooms in hospitals, thus reducing the rate of hospital-acquired infections. Number 6. Henry Dunant, the man behind the Red Cross. Passing through Solferino, Italy, during the Second Italian War of Independence, Dunant was appalled at the suffering that he saw. Dunant wanted the governments of the world to guarantee that wounded soldiers would be treated and that those treating them would be guaranteed safe passage. Dunant traveled all over Europe promoting his plan, and on August 1864, 12 nations signed the First Geneva Convention, agreeing to guarantee neutrality to sanitary personnel, to expedite supplies for their use, and to adopt a special identifying emblem, in virtually all instances a red cross on a field of white. Henry Dunant had helped to bring about the First Geneva Convention, which has saved the lives of thousands of soldiers around the world. He also founded the Red Cross. Number 5. James Harrison has saved the lives of over 2 million people. Known as the man with the golden arm, James's blood produces a rare antibody which cures the otherwise fatal rhesus disease in unborn children. James has donated his blood 1,173 times, a Guinness World Record. It is estimated that James's donations have saved the lives of almost 2.4 million babies. James was forced to retire as a blood donor when he reached the age of 77, the maximum donor age in Australia, where he lives. However, his blood has also been used in the development of a medicine, known as anti-D, which, it is hoped, will banish the rhesus disease in children forever. Number 4. Niels Bolen, seatbelt inventor. Niels Bolen was working for Volvo in 1958 when he came up with a revolutionary design that has saved millions of lives, the seatbelt. Simple lap seatbelts had been around for a long time, but the three-point safety belt was a major technological advancement with a simple design. Bolen received a patent for the design the next year. After some initial resistance from drivers who resented being told what to do, even for their own good, the three-point seatbelt has become a standard feature in new cars around the world. There is no way of knowing exactly how many lives the seatbelt has saved, but the number is estimated to be in the millions. Number 3. Maurice Hileman. Not all achievements require bravery and self-sacrifice. Take Maurice Hileman, for example. Maurice found other ways to change the world. He created a number of vaccines. He developed the mumps vaccine after his daughter contracted the illness in 1963. In total, Maurice Hileman has single-handedly developed more than 40 different vaccines, including 8 commonly given to children in order to prevent measles, mumps, hepatitis A and B, chickenpox, meningitis, pneumonia, and Haemophilus influenza. His work has probably saved millions of lives and prevented serious complications as a result of the diseases. Number 2. Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks would be amazed to find herself on a list of people who changed the world. Henrietta was a poor tobacco farmer from Virginia. Her death was remarked by no one except her children, her family, and her friends. However, Henrietta Lacks is the source of the HeLa cell line. Her blood contained uniquely immortal cells that can live outside her body indefinitely. After the birth of her 5th child in 1951, Henrietta was admitted to Johns Hopkins University Hospital complaining of a knot in her womb, and doctors took a sample of tissue. It was soon noticed that, unlike normal cells, Henrietta's cells did not die after a few days but rather continued to grow, doubling every 20 to 24 hours. Henrietta's cells can be found in the trillions in laboratories around the world. They have been used by medical researchers studying not only cancer but also hemophilia, influenza, leukemia, and Parkinson's disease. They were also used in developing the polio vaccine, the cancer drug tamoxifen, chemotherapy, gene mapping, and a whole host of other uses. The HeLa cells show no signs of dying. Henrietta Lacks, however, died within months of her admission to the hospital due to a malignant tumor in her cervix. She was buried in an unmarked grave, never knowing that she would go on to save millions of lives and that her remarkable cells would live forever. Henrietta's grave finally received a headstone in 2010. And number 1. Alfred Wallace. Alfred Wallace was a British anthropologist and explorer. He wrote a series of articles on natural selection and the theory of evolution before Charles Darwin got onto it. So, why isn't natural selection called Wallaceism? It seems Wallace didn't fit the expected profile of a serious scientist. Not only was he interested in natural science, but he also took a keen interest in socialism, spiritualism, and the certainty of life on Mars. Also, it seems that Wallace wasn't very shrewd. Coming up with his theory after a bout of illness kept him in his bed. He wrote his ideas down and sent them to Darwin, who was working in the same field and who Wallace hoped would help him get the ideas published. Darwin read the work and was horrified. He hastily wrote his own paper. Both versions were read to members of the Linnean Society in 1858. However, Darwin used his connections to ensure that his was read first and followed it up by immediately publishing a book on the subject, thus cementing his reputation as the man who challenged God, while Wallace seemed happy to go on traveling, studying, and writing articles about whatever interested him. Natural selection at work.